Hello, my name is Amasia, and I'm here with my friend, colleague, client, many things, Dave Schoof. And could you, Dave, introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I like all those categories. Uh, so I live outside of Lausanne, Switzerland. I am a leadership consultant. So I work with senior leaders individually in teams. I have a global clientele, um, and I've been doing this for a long time.
Well, welcome. It's been a privilege to work with you.
Hmm.
And one of the things that you said here is that our conversation would have layers, and
Yes.
that working with me has layers. So what I'm curious about is your experience of working with me, and
Hmm.
that this conversation might be edited. We might go into a layer and then come back and move things back and forth because it's sort of like how I work. Actually, it has depth, so it does have layers, and things arise and move and go deeper, basically.
Yes.
So I hand it over to you.
Great. Well, maybe as a way in is one of the first things that became readily apparent is working with you is extremely unique in that it's hard to describe, and to do so would be limiting. So I've had over the years mentors, coaches, I've worked with therapists, personal trainers, and you wouldn't fit in any one of those boxes and you transcend all of them. So there's elements that I find um, that just surpassed anything I expected coming in. So I remember when we first met, there was a sensitivity in you of being able to bring in not just feedback on what you were hearing, but also almost like the spaces between my words, you were getting information.
Mhm.
And that was very new for me,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
and profound. So that's right off the bat. That's one
Yeah.
of the key characteristics.
Thank you, because that's actually why I call myself first and foremost a seer. As
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
listening to or looking at what is on the surface or readily apparent, but I'm also picking up so much other information that might be exactly what the problem is, but not conscious to you. Or it might be what's
Yes.
in your personal life or in your history or many other ways. So I never know in a session where I'm going to be guided. So yeah, you're right. I
Yes.
kind of do read between the words or listen between the words or look between the cracks.
Yes. And it's interesting. Some of the experiences are coming back as you're saying that. And what's clear in my memory is not just a new perspective or a perception that you have that I didn't, and it illuminates something. There was something occurring real time. So as you were sharing this, and I was connecting into something like new territory, there were new ways of then kind of seeing and moving inside of what we were talking about,
Mhm.
um, which is very different than, say, in my line of work, where you would go off and practice something new or work on it or experiment. It was then in that moment, and that's quite amazing.
Yeah, thank you. What you said a word to me a while ago. You said it's like an inner sanctum. And
Yeah.
it's this sense of there's a level of presence
Mm.
and a without getting too woo, like a field of energy or a
Hmm.
space that allows some subliminal shifts of consciousness that happen in real time that are what also what's happening between the words and
Yes.
between what's being seen. So there's something being healed, something shifting, something moving that is below consciousness or below one's state of being aware of what's happening. And
Yes.
that is kind of, I mean, I do a lot of work trying to describe what that is, but it's a subtle energy field. I know I know what's happening. I can see what's happening. But for most people, it's just this experience of something that needed to awaken or move or shift does.
Yes. Yes. And if I were asked to explain that to maybe some of my clients in the
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
technical world,
Yeah.
it's almost like an operating system upgrade,
Yeah.
or a patch, where almost in real time or quite immediately, there's new capacities, new capabilities.
Mhm.
And so there's been some patching healing going on, that allow for new movements.
Right, right. And from my perspective, what I see is structures in consciousness, in the person's psyche,
Yes.
shift, drop away, get healed, which allows for the upgrade that you're talking about. So it's sort of like they're able to then move into a kind of potentiality that they sensed, but somehow couldn't quite grasp or couldn't quite manifest. So they're
Yes. And this brings me to another aspect that, is quite remarkable about working with you. And that is this ability, in very short order, without knowing a whole lot about me, you were speaking as if you did. In other words, you were speaking a language that gave me access, whether it was particular metaphors you were using, a particular way of bringing a pretty esoteric concept alive that made it very, very approachable.
yeah,
That actually had me
yeah,
relax in, and then
yeah.
that allowed for more to move.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm kind of insistent upon is to make what I'm doing non-WuWu, to make
Yeah,
it to make it
that's good.
approachable and accept, because it is. That's it bothers me
Yeah,
so much. People in the spiritual world that
yeah,
very special language and make themselves feel very special and wear special clothes and the whole thing. It's like my goal is to actually make some of these very real capacities
mm,
um, modern or normalized or approachable, because they are.
yes, yes, and the impact of that too, as I think about it, is I feel not only heard, but I feel respected. So I'm not having to step out of my world into some other world to make sense of what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's my job, is
Yeah,
to
I
is
would
to
agree.
meet you where you're at. And I think if you use the metaphor, you wouldn't talk to a 4-year-old like as a 12-year-old. It's like,
Right,
no, it's
right.
part of my job is discerning who a person is, what their framework is, their language is, so that we can have a conversation. And it's my job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you said one of the things that kind of goes back to what I said before about being a seer, that
Mm,
I was able to use metaphor or to see, because I'm given, and in when I'm working with somebody, I am given imagery. I do see and able to use words I wouldn't even normally use with it. I only used that word once with a particular client. I remember a word once that I used with you that I would never use with anybody else,
hmm.
but it had powerful meaning for you.
Yes,
And you felt like then, oh, she gets me.
yes,
And that's what happens with me. That's what's working with me is a little bit different. Is I get those kinds of hits or images or moments that I can relay.
yes. And those that also, I like this because it's bringing up, other layers to this, and that is because you're coming in that way. I never have felt, like I was being diagnosed
Mm-hmm.
or boxed in or figured out. And then, probably more importantly, never felt like something was wrong. Like there's a way that you honor the way I'm moving, and I've adapted in life, and even, have blind spots and all the other things that are moving. There's an honoring of it that I don't necessarily get when I work in some of those other modalities that I was describing. And that's quite unique.
Well, it's actually because it's deeply what I know to be true. Because
Yeah.
because
Uh,
that all the adaptations or defenses or whatever it is that you might have are healthy and that they were put there for a reason, and with high amounts of intelligence, because they were needed. And so there's a way that I always approach what is here with so much respect, because it got you here. And that's a deep truth of mine. And if something needs to shift or change, that also can happen. And sometimes our defenses, we're paying a high price for them now. But originally, when they were laid down and have defended us our whole lives, it was very good. So I work with that tension between the intelligence of the defenses that are there and the price that's being paid for them now, and then how to release that, heal that, so the person can then thrive.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that aspect, that philosophy of yours, what I'm realizing is that it is enabling me to develop even faster. So I remember after many sessions, and some of them are quite esoteric in content, but I'm finding ways to operationalize it and take it into my day-to-day life immediately. And then there's this integration that goes on. So it's not this separation, like it's something philosophical that I have to interpret and find ways to make work. It's already happening. And I think it's coming from that perspective.
Yeah. And it's also coming from the energetic quality, or the spatial quality, where this begins to, just in opening up and looking at and discovering or exploring this terrain, things begin to shift already in the session.
Yes.
That then have momentum and movement once we leave the time together.
Yes.
And begin to manifest changes in one's life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do have a question for you. Why did you come to me?
That's a good question.
Mm.
So I've been in the field of human development and working with leaders for a long time, and I've been working on myself for a long time. And the older I get, and the more senior in the world I get with clients, I'm discovering more and more how much more is available beyond my cognitive capabilities and even my emotional intelligence. So, the things that are much quieter, in the coaching world, we'll talk about subtle energy. In the business world, we'll talk about good instincts, or how to read the fog of war, or how sense making, in increasingly complex systems. And so I started finding my limits in those areas, and wanting to stretch them and understand how to access them better. So it was a non-traditional approach that I was looking for.
That could help you understand more of your subtle capacities, is what I would call it.
Yes, because I knew I had them, but it was kind of sloppy or kind of ad hoc, and it's like, how can I harness that? We do all these years of work on emotional intelligence, relational, good relations and communications. What's that corollary for wisdom?
Oh, it's beautifully said. And I find also that there is, in the professional world, not vocabulary around this.
Exactly.
It's like when you say it's muddy or murky or ad hoc or whatever, it's like, because these skills aren't named or taught or honored, people are fumbling around in the dark, and these are very successful people that are using these skills,
Exactly.
don't quite know what they're doing, let alone how to, like you said, empower them, make them better, more precise, etc.
Exactly. So it's not just, helping my clients and finding a vocabulary and a capacity ability that helps the clients, but myself. Like, there've been numerous occasions where I was getting good wisdom, good intelligence in the moment, reading a group, or something was moving through. And if I was able to relax a little bit more and open to that, I think I would have been even more effective. So, that's the overall curiosity that had me come to you. And then with real specific, like what's next. I'm at a stage in life where I've been very successful. I've achieved all of the kind of the culturally ascribed signals of success, and yet there's this little unease, this little disquiet of what's next. What the longings, the things that come in the night. So that was at a personal level what had me seek you out as well.
Yeah, and I love that you use the word longing, because I always know
Mm,
that actually, once we can really feel into that, it's always our truest north. And to work with that with people, with that question of what is next, and to clarify that longing and how to move into that.
mm,
It's powerful territory.
indeed. Yeah.
So let me go back to what you said, in
Hmm.
looking for how to understand what I would call your subtle capacities.
Hmm.
Have I been able to help you there? And how so?
Hmm.
And what's
Oh, yes.
before and after, and what's happened with that,
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, absolutely. The before would have been occasionally knowing that something was going on to actually very intentionally being able to access. So um, almost having not only a frame to orient in the moment, but even a process, if you will. So to be able to um, uh, quiet, go inside, seek higher guidance, check with what's with the other person or the group or the spaces in between in the group, in group dynamics. And it's amazing the information that comes through. Um, and there's a humility that I've learned with it too. And that is, it's not like I've got it figured out. Um, so there's a real, something comes through and I test it. My questioning has gotten very, very good. I've always asked good questions, but like there's a step increase in timing, the kind of question, how it helps open for discovery, and that's coming from that guidance. Absolutely.
Mm.
And going back to the teaching that you've given me, um, again, it's quite something to feel so approachable to content that does feel quite esoteric in the beginning. So
Mm.
now I don't think twice about it. It's second nature. The practices you've given give, all this easy access that with some experimentation, it's real time. And that's been
That's been my goal,
very
to make
impactful.
this
Yeah.
normal, to make this normalized, because I think that at high levels of leadership is what's needed. It's like, how do I have these extra skills, you want to call them
Yeah.
extra, subtle skills, and it's not weird, it's just normal, it's just part of my abilities in the world.
Yes. Yeah, and I can tell you, I've been of great service to some client systems where we were working real time in crisis situations where things were unfolding. And it was this access that provided guidance. It also kind of grounded everyone, and it allowed versatility because things were unfolding so fast. So the lack of rigidity, that we sometimes will do in the face of the unknown,
Oh
we'll
yeah.
grab what we know and hold on for dear life. And the entire group was able to move very, very well with it.
Beautiful. Yeah. So you said that you called it like being able to operate in the fog of war.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of like that
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Certainly for my clients. Yeah. Amma, this has been fun. Um, I could go on and on, but I think one of the most important pieces that I would want to say is, we're all moving so fast in this world. Um, and you're one of the very few I consider absolutely necessary to be at the center of my world. So you're my go-to. Um, you're kind of the hub of what enables me to go out into the world and support clients, people I care about, and making a difference. So our work together is not something that's light. It's quite phenomenal and super important to me. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Um, gives my this work meaning to me. So I'm honored and deeply, deeply grateful to have this relationship with you. And I also find it a lot of fun and interesting. It's very
Yeah,
energetically collaborative. There's a lot that goes
that's a good phrase. Yes, it is.
that I really, really enjoy. So thank you very
Mm.
much for spending this time with me. And
Oh, my pleasure.
thank you.